back like we never left. It's Double Move Sports. We're breaking these rookies down on the channel. Hit the Discord. If you want to keep rocking with us, send your questions in there. Drop them in the comments. If you want to get feedback on your rookie drafts, dynasty trades, startup picks, you name it. But let's jump into Rachaad White, a guy that you and I have been up and down on throughout this draft process because there's a lot of things to like and there's a lot of things not to like. And I think one of those things that we did not like was the fact that he's kind of built like a wide receiver, Rachaad White is. He started as a JUCO prospect, couldn't really find a role until he finally landed in Arizona State, where he took over the backfield his senior year. So even when Rachaad White, who got day 2 draft capital, it took him a minute to get fully ramped up in college. But once he did, over 1,000 yards in the ground, a 16% target share at Arizona State, 43 receptions on 50 targets for 456 receiving yards at 22 years old. And then you look at the landing spot in Tampa, there's a lot to be excited about in Rachaad White. I think this is a guy that I'm going to have a lot of shares of in redraft as well. You and I both have him as a mid to early second round pick in these super flex rookie drafts for Dynasty. But what's your outlook on Rachaad White from the standpoint of, hey, he's not the entrenched starter right off the bat. We don't know what Tom Brady is going to be doing on a year-to-year basis. Is he retired? Does he play? And Rachaad White being 23 years old certainly isn't anything that we love to see.
Yeah, Rachaad White's a guy that I've actually been rising on a lot since before the draft process. I think before I was just really, questioning the utilization and, how was he really going to translate to the NFL level as kind of having that receiver build. But the more I've looked into his tape, the more I've looked into his numbers, the more I've looked into everything, I think Rachaad White really does have what it takes to be a really, really good running back in the NFL. I mean, the size certainly checks out, 6 foot, 214. That's plenty big enough, especially with that 4.48 speed to be an efficient running back in the NFL and to take a pretty sizable workload. And when you pair that with the fact that you have 43 receptions in 2021 at the running back position, that's what you love to see. We love these guys in fantasy football. Call it Alvin Kamara, call it DeAndre Swift. Those are the low-hanging fruits of these hybrid running backs that don't get a bell cow workload but are still really good.
4th in running back receiving yards in the NCAA last year, 6th in receptions amongst all NCAA running backs.
Exactly. And so when we look at these guys, these Alvin Kamara, DeAndre Swift, these other types of running backs, I think Rachaad White has what it takes to profile as the same kind of guy. So it's like, yes, the situation in Tampa Bay, he's, stuck behind Leonard Fournette, or at least it looks that way right off the bat. But he has the opportunity to be a premier fantasy football running back without being an absolute workhorse in an offense. So with Rachaad White, you mentioned the breakout in 2021, but in 2020, he kind of got screwed by the COVID year. 4 games in 2020, and he had 420 rushing yards in those 4 games. So he had over 100 yards a game in 2020, and then actually was able to put it together for a full season in 2021 as a runner, as a receiver. And I just love his versatility. I think Tom Brady's going to love a player like Rachaad White. I think Leonard Fournette is certainly capable as a pass catcher, and actually last year showed us he can get it done in volume as well. I think his last year in Jacksonville, he was just in this absolute bell cow work. And while receiving's not necessarily a strong suit, he showed he could get it done. Did that in Tampa Bay last year as well. But with Rachaad White in the landing spot, the draft capital checks a box. Round 3, that's fine. That'll do just fine. But I've seen a lot of hate on Rachaad White for the landing spot. And it's like, yes, it's Tampa, which is exciting. But Leonard Fournette's on that 3-year deal. He's going to be the bell cow. He's going to get everything from Brady. Brady trusts him, which I think is true to an extent. But Leonard Fournette last year missed 3 games. Leonard Fournette in 2020 missed 3 games. In 2018, missed 8 games. In 2017, missed 3 games. So the theme here for Leonard Fournette is like he's missing time each and every season. And even if it's only, 2 or 3 weeks, we could see Rachaad White come in during those weeks and be an immediate top 10 play for the week. We've seen that from guys like Tony Pollard. We've seen that from guys like Alexander Madison in the past, where the starter goes down, they come into an immediate bell cow workload, and they can give you tremendous fantasy value. So in terms of what he is in his rookie season, I think Rachaad White is probably one of the premier high-value handcuffs in the NFL. And on top of that, I think the upside is there for him as a more fluid, a more natural pass catcher out of the backfield to maybe carve out a third down role that they wanted in Giovanni Bernard before they realized he was completely washed last season. Although I think they brought him back, which makes no sense, but we'll see.
Yeah, and what an indictment on Keyshawn Vaughn. There is a risk here in the Rachaad White situation, which is maybe Keyshawn Vaughn is viewed as that back because he did have some pop games down the stretch last year. But I think we like what Rachaad White brings to the table a lot more from a skill set perspective. And this might be going down narrative street a little bit here, but Bruce Arians was notorious for not letting rookies see the field. And the fact that he's gone could mean that dark cloud of rookie hate, lack of rookie snap share is gone from Rachaad White, where it's not like, okay, Bruce Arians isn't going to let him on the field year one, and then your dynasty asset's going to decline because he didn't play. So at least we can put some of that behind us. If he gets the trust of Brady, if Rachaad White does, he's going to be one of those guys that when to start him, and he's going to be the number one waiver wire ad whenever that happens with Leonard Fournette. And Fournette hasn't ever played an entire season in his career. I know he was third in fantasy points per game last year, but he's never been super efficient on the ground. And really just to check down Charlie at 27 years old, you got to imagine, even though he has a 2-year deal, Leonard Fournette is going to miss significant time over the next 2 seasons, opening up this path for Rachaad White. And then the hope is that he can be seen as this 3-down workhorse, that true David Johnson, Christian McCaffrey type of running back that can do it all in all phases of the game. We'll have to see if Rachaad White can develop as a runner. I believe that he can. I think he does have good vision from what I've watched of his play in college. But that was one of the things that you and I were kind of skeptical about of, hey, does the NFL view this guy as a gadget player because he profiles much more as a receiver than a pure rusher on the ground? So if he can develop that part of his game, we could be looking at a true RB1 workhorse a year or two from now. But certainly with Rachaad White, he's super exciting and an asset that I want to invest in, have him on a few rosters already, whether it's best ball, dynasty, or redraft.
Yeah, and when we look at, I know last year Leonard Fournette had the huge season in Tampa Bay as a workhorse back, but if we look at Ronald Jones, Keyshawn Vaughn, Giovanni Bernard, now I know Vaughn and Bernard are still there, but if Rachaad White can just beat them out on this depth chart, 4 snaps, between Vaughn, Rojo, and Bernard last season, there were about 140 carries and 50 targets between those 3 guys. So if Vaughn can come in, be the clear number 2, and carve out even that workload, and he doesn't even dip into Fournette's at all, he could come in with a pretty solid role right off the bat with the 8 to 10 carries, 3 to 4 targets per game that we love to see. So if he comes in and he has a role like that, a Tony Pollard type role on this offense, Rachaad White could just be another one of those guys that can be a league winner if he becomes the workhorse back or if Leonard Fournette goes down at the right time. And I think long-term, as we're thinking about dynasty leagues, Leonard Fournette is on that 3-year deal. There is an out for Leonard Fournette after 2023, but my gut tells me when Brady is gone, Fournette is going to be gone too. So if Brady decided to retire after the season, wouldn't be surprised if Tampa Bay even looked for the trade market or looked to the trade market with a guy like Leonard Fournette. So while the deal says 3 years, doesn't always mean it's going to be 3 years. And we could see Rachaad White in a big-time role sooner rather than later in Tampa.
Day 2 draft capital for Rachaad White was huge in this draft when you're comparing that to the Zamir Whites of the world, the Isaiah Spillers of the world, the Dameon Pierce and Tyler Algier, who are set to get these decent-sized workloads year one. Rachaad White getting that draft capital means he's a guy that we should like in Dynasty.